Come on, hopefully this is going to work. Hey, I think it is. I think something's happening. Hello, coders. Happy Thursday morning. This is 7:30 BST, British summertime. And we're going to continue on with our SQL, or MySQL, that we were doing yesterday. Yesterday we dealt with the status table of this invoicing application that we are building. Today we're going to be building out the customer table. Now, yesterday I had some issues with the Docker containers trying to run the scripts from both the host machine as well as within the containers themselves. For anyone new coming onto this stream and wondering what on earth I'm talking about, we are building a application that I'm going to be using for FreeCodeCamp. I'm going to be using this as a teaching tool to teach object orientation in PHP. We're building a invoicing application, and we need a mechanism to save data, all the invoices that we've created, the statuses of those invoices, the customers, and so forth. This is all going to happen in MySQL. We built out the status table yesterday. We're building the customer table today, and it's we're using hardly any frameworks. We're not using any frameworks at all. That is a rule. However, we are using libraries that will help us with the testing. So we are using things like Codeception and PHP Unit and all of that good stuff, and obviously PHP Stan. I want to talk as well today about some of the Gatsby sites that I'm building. I mentioned some of that yesterday, but I've got a little bit more of an update. Also, as I've mentioned on Twitter, I filed off a CFP, a call for paper, last night, so I want to talk about that too as well. But let's just get into the code and start writing some bits and pieces. So I'm going to hit the coder thing, and then we're going to go straight in. So the changes that I did yesterday were around, or after the stream I should say, were around the actual testing of, not the testing, sorry, the actual updating of the database, the rebuilding of the database. It's probably best if I showed you actually from here, because you'll be able to see it better in the README. So this is the PFWD FreeCodeCamp -PHP OOP. That is the repository that we're working in on GitHub. And I created this database section here. It's inside the installation, and this will this discusses how to populate the database. So the problem I had yesterday is I couldn't run this command through the Docker containers via the host machine, and this is because the shell that you're using returns back information, so the TTY needs to be attached, and we can't easily do that. So what we do is we put in the capital T flag. Now this means that there's no output whatsoever from this, which is why we need to pass in the password on the command line. So this is not the most secure thing to do, and that DB password is whatever you've set in the .env file, which is in here. So if you copy the .env file .dist, it's whatever password you set at that point there. The .env file, of course, is not committed to the repository, which is all explained here. So you copy the dist file to the .env file, then you modify the values, and then so forth. So that's the first way of doing it. That we are running the rebuild SQL from the host machine into the database container from Docker, using Docker Compose. The second way of doing it, which gives you more of a verbose output, which is a bit more secure, is that we run Docker Compose exe db mysql, passing in -u for the root and -p for the password. That will ask you for the password. That will prompt you for the password. And so you fill that in, so that goes in blank. And then you get to the MySQL prompt. You type in use invoice hyphen app. I suppose I could have put a database argument on there perhaps. And then you run the source scripts rebuild.sql, and that will rebuild the whole thing. Well, it's the same script as that, but you'll get the whole output. Which is pretty awesome. I'm going to just run this and test this and see, just to double check that this is all working. So if we go back to the code here, we can see that we have the containers, they're all up and running. And if I did a docker ps-a, yep, they're still good. What I can do is let's dive into the database first. Put in the password, and then what I'm going to do is use the Invoice app, and then I'm going to do show tables, and we're going to drop the table database, table status, right? Bye. Okay, so let's just double check that. Show tables, there's nothing there. Let's exit this out. Excellent. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the browser here. I'm going to copy this part here, and we're going to go back to the code. I'm going to paste that in, and I need to change this password to the password, which is test for this instance. But again, this isn't very secure because you're having to put the password on the command line. But if we press enter here, we should see that we have, well, got this warning using password on the command line. Interface can be insecure. Well, it is insecure. But we don't have any output whatsoever. However, if we go back into the container as MySQL, so if we do the password again, and then if we do show tables, oops, sorry, beg your pardon. If use invoice app, then we show those tables, then we have the status. So that's that being populated. The downside, of course, is that there's no output whatsoever, which is a bit problematic, especially for testing. So I'm not sure if I recommend this route, but there's multiple routes. It's all good. Of course, what I could do is I could drop that database or drop that table. Like so. We're going to come out of this, and then I'm going to go back into the browser, and we're going to copy this mechanism. So we're going to copy that. We're going to go back into the code. We're going to paste this in. Oops, if I can. Can I? Nope. No. Okay. Sorry, bear with me. It's just that, isn't it? Then we're going to do use invoice underscore app. Then, if I go back to the browser, we're going to use this. So this is sourcing of the scripts, rebuild.sql. So that's what I'm going to type in now. So we're going to do source of, it's we've got to do an absolute path. So this is scripts, and then this is rebuild.sql. And as you can see, we've actually got some output here. So we've changing the database. We're running this query, and we have one's affected. Or sorry, we have one warning at least. Then we run another query, fine, and then we run a third query, and we have 3 records. So we actually have some output, which is really handy, especially if things actually go wrong. So I might continue on down this path of actually getting into the data, to the actual container and running, because there's no way of getting output very easily doing it on the host machine. So anyway, let's get out of this. Let's exit that. Oh, I suppose what I could do is just show tables. So we have that, and then I can just do a select all from status just to show you that has actually happened. So okay, let's do. Let's start building out the next table. So the next table we're going to build out is the customer table. So let's go. Where is it? Where are we? SRC, and then we are entity type. We've done the status table, so this is the name, the internal name, and then obviously that extends the abstract entity that has ID, date created, and date updated. The customer table, however, has company name, first name, last name. So these are all strings. And then again, it extends the abstract entity. So we have ID, date created, date updated. So we need to build those out. That's what we're going to be doing today. So let me just get myself sorted. I haven't given myself much room on this desk. Hang on. How's everyone going anyway? I had a problem yesterday with the chat. Apparently I had subscribe only active, so I didn't realize. I'm mainly from YouTube, so this is a different platform, and I didn't realize all the safeties were on. So yesterday I removed that. I typed in some code which you can put in the chat to disable subscriber only mode. It disabled it, but I'm not sure if that's disabled it globally. But let's hope for that. I couldn't find an actual setting in the Twitch dashboard to actually disable that setting. So, and then I did a bit of research into it, and it showed that, or it said that you can only do that if you're a Twitch partner. I don't know if I don't think I'm not a Twitch partner. So I'm very confused. I'm very confused. Someone sent me a private message yesterday during the stream complaining that they couldn't write in the chat. So if you can or you can't, then please do let me know. So anyway, let's continue on and start working on the other bits and pieces. So we've got the MySQL. The rebuild SQL is this file here that we created yesterday. So we have this, we're sourcing the schemas, and then we're sourcing the data. So the schema is going to create the table, right? So we drop the table if it exists, then we create the table if it doesn't exist, and then the data is the referential data that we're adding. Now, I don't think there's going to be any referential data for the customer, I don't think. Not at this stage, because I might create some forms to actually create a customer, perhaps. After all, there is only like 3 or 4 fields, so it's not going to be a massive form to fill out. But we need to create the schema for the status. Now, if I go back to the browser just a second, do apologize, I know I'm going forward and back, but if I take a look at one of the issues, I put that one in this morning, which is create MySQL schema for customer table. So that's the one we want to focus on today. So before we do anything, we want to create the branch for this. I believe this is issue 18. Excuse me. So let's just make sure we're in the right place. LA is not going to do anything. LS, there we go. We can see that we're in that place. That's all good. Then what we need to do is we need to do a git checkout -b, because we want to create that branch. And we're going, it's 18, and we're going to do MySQL schema. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. Customer. Okay, so we've now switched to that branch. If I did a git branch, we should see that we have switched, which is good. So now we can start writing this schema out. Now the schema is very similar, if not pretty much a duplicate really of the status.sql. But obviously there's other additional fields. There's 2. There's the first, the first name, the last name, and the company name. So that changes in here. So this could be a relatively straightforward stream, I hope. Touch wood. So if we did customer SQL, and I'm going to add that. I don't think you can see that from when I'm doing it, because PHP Storm has a bunch of pop-ups which I don't think my streaming software can capture, but I just created that customer.sql file. So obviously we need to change all of this jazz. So this is customer now. This is customer. definitely need the ID. We definitely need the date created and the date updated. They are definitely needed. But if I go back a minute, just for my own sanity's sake, if I go back into the SRC, and what is I'm looking for? Entity type customer. Yeah, I just want to get the names right. So we have company name, first name, and last name. So these are the 3 fields that we need to add in. So we're going to go to customer again. So we have, oops, come on, that away. So we have name. We're going to replace that with company name. And we're going to do underscores for camel case. Excuse me, company name. We're also going to have first name, and we're also going to have, whoops, last name. We obviously want to keep the date created, so I'm not going to overwrite that. Last name. Okay, so that's groovy. That's cool. That looks good. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy all of that. I'm going to go into hang on. There we go. I'm just going to dive into the SQL. Oh, excuse me, SQL. So if we go up a couple of times to here, and then we'll use test, and then we no, come on. Have I got my caps lock on? There we go. Let's just bring that up so I can actually see what I'm doing. And then we use the invoice use. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally copy all of that and put it in here, which hasn't worked. The copy and paste is rubbish, jumping to and from. Maybe it's a Mac thing, I don't know, but jumping from the actual code to the shell. There we go. Right. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that it all ran okay. So we have create table if non-exist customer. And what I can do is describe that customer. So I can describe customer. It's going to look a bit rubbish because the terminal window isn't actually big enough. But we have the field, the type, the whether it's null, and so forth. So, okay, we need the customer has the first name and the last name. They are required. Do I require a last name for a customer? I'm going to go no. I'm going to say no because I might not know. I may not know. So let's change that. So in where are we? First, last name. We're going to change that to be null. I think maybe it's just a case of removing the not on there. Let's just see. So I'm going to just drop the customer table. Oops, sorry, drop table customer. There we go. Then I'm going to attempt to copy all of this again, put it in here. Nope. There we go. Second times works. Okay, so that's worked, and I've removed the not from the last name. So I'm going to just press up a couple of times because, of course, this is on every line, and I'm going to just describe that. So last name is now nullable, right? So null here. So I'll bring this up. So we have null, and then the last name is nullable. Which is all good because, you know, when you're creating an invoice, you might not, there's clients that I know, like clients that I know that are maybe clients from abroad or clients that I've just sort of had acquaintances, like a couple of dealings with. I don't know their full name. So, you know, I don't think, I know their first name because that's who I send the invoice to. And it's usually the first name is usually the first thing in the email. So it's like, first name at whatever company, but I don't necessarily know what their last name is. I certainly don't know what their middle name could be, or if they have one. So yeah, I've decided to put that in as nullable. Again, we have a primary key here, and again we have the date created and date updated. Date created is changed on the current timestamp, and the date updated is also changed to the current timestamp on update. So that's the special extra piece of magic going on there. Wonderful. Okay. So how do I get this into the rebuild script? Well, it's pretty simple. Although I should never say simple. It never is. But the idea is that we go into the rebuild.sql and we copy that line, paste it in here, and we change that to be customer. Now, because I'm starting to actually add more tables, I need to be careful of the order in which we do things. Luckily, the customer and the status aren't actually related to each other. It's going to be a little bit different when we start dealing with the invoice and the invoice item, because there is a dependency. Because the invoice item is associated to an invoice. An invoice can have many invoice items, so there is a foreign key link between the two. And I believe what I'm going to do, because an invoice, excuse me, because an invoice item cannot be, and I'll discuss this more when I do it, but because an invoice item cannot be the same on other invoices, it's not going to be a many-to-many, which I'm thankful for, because they can get quite complicated. In fact, it's just going to be a one-to-many. So one invoice can have many invoice items. So what I'm thinking is that the invoice item would have the invoice ID on it, which would be the association between the invoice item and the invoice. But we'll discuss that more when we get to it. Let's just run this rebuild script and make sure that I haven't actually broken anything. So let's hit save. I'm going to what am I going to do? I'm going to just drop the table, I think. Let's dive in. Use invoice app, show tables. So we've got two tables here, customer and status. I'm just going to drop them both. So we're going to do drop table. I always forget to put in table. Drop table customer. Goodbye. And then we're going to drop the status table as well. Bye-bye. And then we're just going to do a show tables again, just to show them all. So we have an empty set, so that's all good. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run this rebuild script, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I haven't broken anything. So we're going to do a source again of scripts, and then it's rebuild.sql. Okay, so what are we doing here? So we are putting in, I mean, I guess I could put in comments, right? It's probably easier if I put in output comments. That would probably make my life a lot easier, because I don't really know which query is for what. But we have all these queries. We have warnings, but we don't have any errors, which is all good. And if I did show tables, we have the customer and the status. And if I did select all from status, we should, hopefully, fingers crossed, have all the status in there, which is awesome. I'm digging this. I really am. Pleased at how this is going. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to just exit this out. We're going to just do a git status. Don't worry about that DS store. So we have two files that we've changed. So I'm going to add these. So we have the rebuild and the schema. So because they're all within the MySQL, I could just do this. So git add. And it's MySQL, and we'll just do an asterisk to add them both. So if I did a git status, then we have those two in there. So let's go ahead and commit it. So git commit it -m. That's the message. We're going to put the message in as adding. What are we adding here? We're adding the customer. MySQL SQL schema, and I can't spell schema. There we go. And we're also going to have closes, if I can, closes. Actually, we won't put the closes in because we should do the closes on the PR. So there we go. That's all done. That's all pushed. Well, that's all committed. I need to push it now, obviously. So I can't remember for the life of me what the branch was called. So I'm just going to check that branch. That was 18 MySQL Schema customer. So we're going to do a git push of origin. I swear half of my streams are just me struggling to type. MySQL schema HEMA hyphen customer. So we're going to try and push that up. Hopefully that will do it. Boom. Okay, it is. So that's created the new branch. Super excited with that. Let's now try and do a pull request. So this is something that I tried to do the other day, but I had problems. Well, I didn't have problems. I had to put in my password. I was a bit uncomfortable doing that on the stream, even though it wasn't actually displayed on the terminal because it's hidden. But still, I wanted to do this offline. If this asks me to do it again offline, then I will do. If this asks me for my password again, I will do it again offline. There's also other bits and pieces that I have that I need to, two-factor, 2FA stuff. So I need to deal with that as well. But anyway, what we've done is on the browse here, on the browser, we've pushed our origin feature. This is the hub.github.com. This is the hub application, I guess you can call it, that I'm using to play around with GitHub. Or the previous GitHub commands, I should say, are standard GitHub commands. But the next one, which is the pull request, opens a text editor to deal with the pull request. So let's go back to the code. Ow, I just punched the table, and that really hurts. Let's grab a swig of tea. So let's bring that up. What I need to do is do a hub pull request. Press enter. Excellent. It's allowing me. Okay, so this is now going into Vim, and I can do all sorts of bits and pieces. So one thing I'm going to do is obviously get into insert mode. That always helps. Is I'm going to just put in a space and do close. Is it closes or close? I forget. And then it's #18. I'm going to just double check. I can't remember whether it's close or closes, but so there is a GitHub close with commit. Just having a little bruise on the old YouTube, on the old thingy. It's both closes and close. So this is what I'm looking at here. Closes and close, or closed. I suppose close is the action of doing it. Close is when it's closed, and closed is, I don't know. It's too early in the morning to discuss all those things. So anyway, let's go back to the code. So it's close. I'm just going to do close 18. Okay, so that's cool. So we get out of Vim. We will do a write and quit, and hopefully this will push it up, which it is. It's done a pull request. Boom, boom, boom. If I hit this, I don't know what browser that's going to open that up in, but yeah, that's done it. So if I did browser here, so we have this, adding customer, all that jazz. That's all good fun. So it's now up to me as the owner to merge that in, yeah, I think that's all good. So I'm gonna hit merge. I could obviously do this with the command line too, but sometimes it's nice to get a visual. We can see obviously the commits. So if I hit that commits, we can see that we are adding the customer stuff. This is all the code that we've just written. So this is proper handy stuff. And I can delete the branch as well to just tidy up my place. So that's deleting the branch on the origin, which is GitHub. It's not deleting the branch here. At all. Now that's gone and merged into master, which is fine. So if we go back to master branch, we should now see that we have in MySQL, we can see the commit message there. In Schema, we should have the customer.sql. That was the file that we had just created, which is all good, which is all hunky-dory. Now what I need to do is tidy up my workspace, because what I've gone and done is I've deleted the branch off of the origin GitHub, but not locally. Because if I did a git branch, yeah, we can see that we are on that. We're still on that thing. Now we've pushed to master. What we need to do is we need to check out master. So git checkout master. Boom. Then we do a git. I'm going to do a git pull. Excuse me. Because that will pull the changes that I've just merged from master into my local master branch. And then I'm going to do a git branch -d of that branch, which I can't remember the name of, which is 18 hyphen MySQL hyphen schema hyphen customer. So this branch -d will delete that branch locally. So there we go. That is the workflow, or a cut down version of the workflow that I'm going to be continually on using for this project, which is very, very, very nice. Ah, dear, gosh, when will my cold go? So that is looking all good. We're now building out the SQL stuff. We have the two other tables that we need to deal with are the largest tables. We have, I say largest, they're quite light, but they're large in terms of complexity compared to what we've been dealing with. We have the invoice table, and we have the invoice item table. Now, which one do we focus on first? Well, because the ID of the invoice will be on the invoice item, that means that the invoice item can only be created once the invoice has been created. Because we've created the status table and because we've created the customer table, we can now create the invoice table, because that invoice table also relies on those two tables. I mentioned yesterday about the ERD and drawing this out in a sort of an ERD normalized kind of manner, where you can see what tables relate to what tables. You work from the outside and go in. So the tables that don't rely on other tables, you build those first, or at least that's the way I do it. Usually those tables have an element of referential data. The referential data, of course, is data that you need to have for reference in order for this application to work. This application doesn't need to have a customer. It doesn't need to have an invoice. It doesn't even need to have an invoice item, but it does need to have a status, because you create the invoices, you create the invoice items, and you create the customers. You don't create the statuses. So that's referential data. So that's what we covered yesterday. Today we covered the customer, and then later we're going to cover on we're going to start building out the invoice and attach that invoice table to the status and to the customer. And then after that, we're going to build the invoice item and attach that to the invoice. And then all of our pieces in the jigsaw puzzle will be complete. Touch wood. But before we move on, I want to just discuss a couple of things around the Gatsby stuff that I've been playing with. What I would like to talk about is the static sites that I've been using. I'm going to go to the browser here. So as you may or may not know, I host the How to Code Well podcast, which is a podcast that goes out every Friday. It's a video and it's an audio podcast. Here we go. This is howtocodewell.fm. This site is built using Sculpin. Sculpin is a static site generator built on PHP. It's a lovely tool. It's very usable. It's you can lash something up really quickly and really efficiently, and it's very quick. It's very nice to use. If you're a Twig developer, then or a developer that's used Twig, then do check that out, because it uses Twig as the templating system. So if you've come from a Symfony background perhaps and you've used Twig, although obviously Twig is not the de facto rendering template engine for Symfony by a long shot, but if you're familiar with Twig, then check that out. We have an amazing amount of guests on. I've had something in the region of like 4 guests. So we had Jacques Woodcock on last week. We were talking about Amazon. He's an Amazon software development manager. We then had Emma Vidkind, who was talking about how to be a better developer. Each one of these are about an hour long. They're both videos, or all of them. They're all videos and they're all audio. So you can get them on iTunes and Spotify and other places, Stitcher and other places like that. But you can actually watch the actual episodes as well on the How to Code Well YouTube channel. We also had Stefan Doherty talking about learning to code after 30. Stephanie Helbert talking about making web VR better. And Josh Hudson, he went from a call center and is now a coder working at a digital agency as a front-end web developer. These are all fascinating guests that I've had on, and there's been loads more. I mean, if I go to the actual episodes list, then we've got Drew, Rob Wilson, Rob Waller, John Jacob from the Iteration podcast, Tom Varell, who is a self-taught React developer, and loads more, and loads more. This is season 2, so we also have a season 1 as well. But I want to talk about the actual site. The site is using Sculpin, and it's worked quite well so far. However, I'm finding a little bit of an issue with actually putting up guest information, because what I would like is eventually to have a guest page where we can actually, because we're coming into like 24 guests now or something like that. I would like to have a guests page where we can show all the guests and their little profile snippets, and then a link to all of the podcasts that they've been on, because some of these guests have been on before. Tom Varell certainly has. Jeremy Onion, which is not on this list, he certainly has as well. Oliver Davies, who was on talking about Drupal and Drupal 8 and the differences between 8 and 7 and all that stuff. He's actually going to be on again very soon. So I want to have a way of seeing a guest and then seeing those podcast episodes. It's not a very easy way of doing this. When you start getting into like 20, 30, 40 types of records and you're just doing it in date order like this, a lot of things just get sort of like pushed off the end of the list, and I don't want that to happen. Also, I want to have a section on here which displays the most popular episodes as well. So like the featured, not the featured, because that means that I'm dictating that, but the episodes that are more popular, and then episodes that are perhaps related to those as well. So I've got loads of ideas that I want to do here, and I'm not sure whether Sculpin is the right way of doing that. I need to talk to people who are better than me, who have used Sculpin for bigger sites. But a site that I have built in another static site generator is this site here, which is my peterfisher.me.uk site. This is basically like a sort of a calling card, a business card, if you will, on the net, which links to all of these things. So links to the How to Code Well site, links to the podcast, links to the YouTube channel, lists of all the things that I've worked on, and basically a little synopsis of my background. This uses Gatsby. Excuse me. This uses Gatsby. This is JavaScript. This is insanely quick in terms of developing, because you're manipulating the DOM. You're using React, which is lightning quick anyway. So I'm pretty impressed. And there's something that I'm going to be delving with deeper. I've played with it before, but in more depth, is using GraphQL to import data during the generation of this or generation of the site. I don't need to do it for this site, but what I was thinking of doing, what I will be doing, is with this project that I'm doing with FreeCodeCamp, I would like to have a site which sort of like is a microsite for this. So we have a main sort of window, a video window on the front of the page, and that will have the course that I will eventually get to produce for FreeCodeCamp around the invoice. And then underneath that, I'm going to have thumbnails of all of the live streams that I've done to back this course up, that I'm building now. Then you click on one of those thumbnails and the main course video changes to that video that you've just clicked on. So it's like a single page application. And I think Gatsby for that is going to be very useful. Of course, I could use Sculpin. I could create a whole array of bits and pieces, not an array, a JSON object for those things. But I'm interested with Sculpin. I'm interested with Gatsby because of the GraphQL, because of the way you can sort of like alter it very quickly from external sources too. And I was playing with Drupal the other week as well, and there's a way of connecting the two, which I'm super impressed with, because Drupal has a mechanism of returning an API response based upon a request. And of course, that means that you could hook that in quite well to Gatsby through GraphQL. Now, that site that I'm talking about, the site that the microsite for this FreeCodeCamp course, I'm going to be hosting on Hostinger. Now, when I get around to actually deploying that, I'm going to be demonstrating the deployment process to Hostinger, setting up the VPS and all of that good stuff. Hostinger, I should say, is a proud sponsor of the How to Code Well live streams here. And at the moment, they have a fantastic deal on. It's 82% off a hosting package as well as a free domain. And if you use the discount code Peter Fisher, then you also get a further 15% off. If you go to hostinger.com/Peter Fisher, all one word, then you'll also support the channel as well, which is fantastic. You can pick up that 82% discount as well through that link. That's hostinger.com/Peter Fisher, and then put in Peter Fisher again for the discount code to get a further 15% off. You get hosting for 82% off and a free domain, which is fantastic for things like this. I've used Hostinger before. They're really good, very reliable, very affordable. I recommend them. So thank you very much, Hostinger, for sponsoring this site for this live stream. And also the How to Code Well podcast, which is howtocodewell.fm. That is the podcast. A new one coming out tomorrow. Okay, so let's plow on and start building some more of this code, because we've still got a little bit of time. Just going to take a slurp of my tea. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start building the invoice. That's what we're going to do. This might not work straight away. Let's just say that, because of all the foreign keys. So we're going to put in invoice. Invoice. Oh, well, I guess what I should do, actually, before I even touch any of this, let's just git revert that. Bye-bye. And delete that. Right, let's just make sure that is git status has been removed. Yep, that's good. What I need to do, obviously, is in the browser here I need to create a new issue, because I want to try and do this, because this gives a bit of history. So this is create MySQL schema for invoice table. Now, the properties or the fields are going to be ID. We're going to have let me just double check. If we go to browser, go to code here, entity type invoice. So what have we got? We got reference, customer, items, status, and total. So we don't need to worry about items because that's not a problem on this one. That's fine because that's the link, right? We don't need to worry about that. That mechanism will be built when we do the hydration because that will be a link table. And I'll talk about joins and all that jazz when we get there. So we have the reference, we have the customer, we have the status, and we have the total, and we also have the VAT. Okay, cool. Customer is obviously going to be the ID of the customer. Do we have a status? Yeah, we have a status. That's going to be the ID of the status as well. So let's put those in. So we have ID, we have reference, we have status ID, we have customer ID, we have total, and we have VAT. Okay, so this is going to be an int. This is going to be a string. This is going to be a float. This is going to be a float. This is going to be an int. And this is also going to be an int as well. I guess what I could have done is I could have put this in a table, but nobody's got time for that, right? So that's cool. We'll submit that issue. What ID was this? This is 20. So let's go back to the code. Let's do a git checkout -b. This is 20. This is MySQL schema invoice. Check that out. Awesome. Okay, so let's now go ahead and start building this. So we go to here, the schema. We're going to just copy the status over to invoice. Yep, I will add that. Let's whoop. No, I don't know what's happened there. My terminal's just disappeared. But anyway, we do invoice, and we do invoice in here. Okay, so we have ID. This needs to be reference. This needs to be the total. I'm going to just delete that. This needs to be, we also have another one, which is the VAT. We also have another one, which is a status ID. We also have another one, which is a customer. Omer ID. Now, let me just I just want to triple check that all of those properties are there. So we have reference, customer, items. We don't need to worry about items, that's fine. Status, we've got that. Total, we've got that. VAT, I'm not sure. Do we have VAT? Yes, we got VAT. Okay, let's now fill these out. Excuse me, let's now fill all these out. So let's deal with the hard ones first. Let's deal with the... well, they're not hard, are they? These are integers, so we'll build those out. So we do an int and an int. We're going to have null on these things. Because we could create an invoice and we might not have that assigned yet to a customer. I guess we shouldn't have a null of a status. We need to have a status, I suppose, and I will need to have to check that in the actual logic of the code. I don't think I've set that up, but we'll work through that in later on. I think we'll get to that bridge when it's on fire. So we'll get ID reference. Now the totals, these are slightly different because these are floats. Now I just need to double check my understanding of MySQL floats. I think they might be different. Certainly not integers. Okay, precision 0 to 23, precision from 24 to 53. I think floats are fine. Floats are fine. So we can do float. I have just noticed that we are mixing and matching uppercase and lowercase. So let's fix all of this stuff. It's always good to be consistent. ID. Oh, sorry, int. There we go. Okay, so these are floats. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else I need to do? Let me just, sorry, I'm just perusing MySQL float. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Is it a float? It could be. It could be money. It could be like a numeric thing. No. That's what I need. Oh, it is. It's probably a decimal by the looks of things rather than a float. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay, let's change that to be decimal. We're also going to give it a decimal amount, which is going to be 72. That looks good to me. Okay, let's now focus on the foreign keys because they're the tricky ones. Okay, so what we need to do. Well, let's not faff about with that. Let's just put in decimal. We don't need to worry too much about that at this stage. We might have to worry about it later. But what we do need is the foreign keys. So we're going to type in, after all this jazz is done, we're going to put in a section under here, and we're going to call this foreign key. Excuse me. And this is going to be the categories. So the foreign key is going to be FK for foreign key underscore cat. Sorry, not categories. Customer. Let's do status first because that's the one in order. So we do foreign key FK status. So that's the name of the foreign key, and we're going to do status. We should do this all in status underscore ID. Like so. That's all good. Groovy. Then we need to do another foreign key, which is customer. And again, that's customer ID. We also need to put in references, of course. So underneath the foreign key, we need to do references. We need to reference the actual table that we want to foreign key to. So in this case, it's going to be customer. Sorry, I just had a bazillion messages come through. So customer. And whoops, and that needs to reference the actual ID of the customer. So that's sorry, customer, and that is whoopsie ID. So that's the customer table, right? This is the foreign key. What am I doing? This is status. Sorry, beg your pardon. So this is the foreign key that we created, and we're referencing the status table based upon the ID. I'm not sure whether the backticks are required or not. We're going to remove them anyway. But the same sort of situation happens with the customer here. So we're going to do the customer like so. I'm not sure I'm going to worry too much about cascading at the moment because I need to think about whether or not what happens when one gets deleted or what have you. Obviously, if we delete the invoice, we don't want to be deleting the customer, and obviously, if we delete the invoice, we certainly don't want to be deleting the status. So I need to think about how that is set up. But for now, though, I think we're onto something. Let's save this. Let's copy all of that. Let's run this in the actual code. So I'm going to see if I can work out what on earth happened to the. Okay, I just created a new. There we go. Okay, so let's dive into into SQL. So do one of these things. Come on. There we go. There we go, and then we're going to use the invoice underscore app. Let's do a show of tables. So we have the customer and we have the status table already. So let's just grab all of this stuff, see if this all works. Of course, that's not going to allow me to copy that. Can I paste that in? Nope. Oh, come on. Copy. Paste. You worked a minute ago. What? Why are you... this is annoying. It's not allowing me to copy this code. Copy. Paste. 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 No, it's just creating new lines. I'm not typing all that into the damn thing. That's not happening. Okay, I guess that's frustrating. I guess what I can do is I could update the rebuild script to put that in. So with rebuild, I think PHP Storm is having a bit of a nightmare. So let's copy that in, go into the invoice, or put in invoice like so, and then from here I can now do source of scripts, and then rebuild.sql. Okay, so we do have an error. So we have an error. Check the manual references customer near that. So there's a syntactical error. Let's see. Okay, so it's complaining that there's a problem. Whoops, there's a problem near references customer ID, which is this one here. I reckon it's because of that. Let's just remove all those things. Let's hit save. Let's run that again. Okay, so there we go. We've now created our table, our invoice table. I knew there was going to be a problem. There usually is when you're playing around with foreign keys. Yeah. So that's cool. Let's do show tables. Oh, okay. Why has that not been added? That's very peculiar. That should have gone in. Oh, okay. No. There was still an error. Sorry. Beg your pardon. Let's run that again. Yeah, we do have an error. It's because of the ID. There's me trying to... Is it the ID? No. That's not right. Is it because of... I think I know. It's because of that comma. Because this is a group. This is a group. And then we go into the primary key. There we go. Okay, let's run this. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. I had the commas in the wrong place. Show tables. And we now have the invoice table. Let's bring that up a little bit to make a little bit of room. So if we did describe of invoice, we now have all of this jazz. So we now have the ID, the reference, we have the total, which are the decimals. They're 10 to 0. That's fine. Then we have the status ID and the customer ID. These are the foreign keys. And if I was to do a show create table of invoice, we can see how that has actually been built within the actual schema here. So we have the keys, the statuses, and the customers. So they have put backticks in. And then here we have these constraints. So we have invoice FK1, which is the status, and then the invoice FK2, which is the customer. And that's all good. So yeah, that is we've now created the invoice, which is the main part, the crux, if you will, the core of this. So in the next stream, I'm going to be focusing on the invoice item, I think. Yeah, so I'm pretty chuffed with how that has all gone. Yeah, which I'm pretty stoked, to be honest. This is going very, very well. Now, one thing I need to talk about with this application and building all of these things is that we do need to have a layer to hydrate all of this stuff. So I'm considering possibly building some scripts. They might be PHP scripts. They could even just be insert scripts in the data to actually insert some fixtures, some dummy data into this. And then what I'm thinking of is using Codeception as a means of inspecting the database through a series of tests, just to make sure everything is nicely wired up. That's where my head is at the moment. That's what I'm considering on doing. But I think for now, though, that is a nice conclusion to this. We've created 2 tables. I guess what I should do before I go is I should put up. I'll do this once I've gone. I'll commit this code up and I'll push this up. But for now, though, what I'm going to do is leave you with the intro of my new Python course for Pact Publications. This is Python Clean Coding. So if you're a Python developer and you want to learn how to write Pythonic code, and you want to learn how to write readable and clean code, then do check out the Python Clean Coding course that I've recently developed for Pact Publishing. It's a new course of mine. So without further ado, here is the intro. Welcome to Python Clean Coding. My name is Peter Fisher. I'm a freelance web and mobile applications developer. I'm also the host of the How to Code Well podcast and YouTube channel, where I teach all sorts of web development languages, including JavaScript, PHP, Python, Docker, and Linux. And I'm happy to introduce my new course, Python Clean Coding. This course has 5 sections. In the first section, I discuss what is clean code. And also, I demonstrate the readability features of Python compared to other programming languages such as PHP, JavaScript, Ruby, and so forth. In the second section, I demonstrate how to write Pythonic code. In this section, I demonstrate complicated examples and how to simplify those examples using Pythonic features, such as decorators and context managers. In the third section, I discuss Python coding standards and how to follow Python enhancement proposals, or PEPs. I also demonstrate how to use tools such as PyCodeStyle and Black to ensure that our code is clean and readable. Section number 4 is all about good Python practices. This section is full of code examples. Here I'm comparing bad examples and good examples of common Python applications. Included in this section is also good practices when writing and using functions and classes within Python. In the 5th and final section within this course, we go beyond the syntax and we talk about various different mechanisms that you can adopt to ensure that your code is clean and readable throughout your application's development lifecycle. We talk about test-driven development, we talk about refactoring your code, and we also talk about how to achieve clean code when working on a legacy application. The prerequisites for this course is a desire to learn clean coding skills. You must also want to improve your coding and programming skills too. I also recommend a basic understanding of Python. So let's get started with this course and learn Python clean coding. So that is the Python clean coding course, video course that I've done for Pact Publications. You can see it now on the screen. So you can get it at Pact Pub. It's called Python clean coding. What I did last night as well, which I'll put links to all of this down in the show notes as well as the Hostinger and the howtocodewell.fm site too. This course, this Python clean coding course, covers all sorts of different examples, as you've seen there. Me demonstrating how to write cleaner code I'm comparing that against bad examples, so different examples, good versus bad examples when writing Python. Another thing that I did last night that I just want to touch upon is I pushed off a CFP, which is a call for papers, to the Lightning PHP conference. And I've submitted a talk there. That should be, fingers crossed. Obviously, there's an awful lot of people out there who go to these conferences and speak and stuff. So it's a big pond to swim in. But this is in Tampa in Florida. This is this October. I'm from the UK, so there's going to be an element of travel if I do speak. And my topic is going to be on PHP Stan, potentially. There's other things that I might talk about as well. I have other talks in the wings, so to speak. If that doesn't, I could submit another one if needed. But this seems like a very interesting conference. It's a fairly small conference, so there isn't a lot of speakers stroke attendees. So I think that gives an element of it's a nice level of intimacy in the sense that the attendees can talk with the speakers because they're going to be in close proximity. So I think that's very good. It's going to be an interesting day. It's a one-day conference in Tampa Bay in Florida. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I'm talking about PHP and confidence in your code using tools such as PHP Stan and other things. So I'm dead chuffed. What I might do is I might talk if by some magic I do speak at that conference. I will be certainly talking about that more. The topic in these streams. Because I would like to, use this as a means of rehearsal and stuff. But yeah, that is the Lightning PHP. You can see this at lightningphp.org. Again, I'll put the links down in the show notes as well. But that is on October the 4th this year at Tampa Bay, or Tampa in Florida. So yeah, if you're a PHP developer, if you're in Florida, you're looking for a conference to go to, check out lightningphp.org. But for now, though, I need to shoot off and do some work. As a freelance developer, I've got an awful lot of stuff that I need to crack on with as it's now coming to the start of the day. But thank you ever so much for watching. Happy coding, everyone. I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.